Here's my problem with what's going on, if you will, the tech stacks, or for lack of a better word, just Model A versus Model B. What we've gotten for 15 years, since shortly after the great financial collapse of 2008, in January of 2009 is when the Bitcoin white paper came about. For 15, 16 years since 2009, we've been told by the mainstream media, and the owners and operators of the mainstream media have permitted Bitcoin, Bitcoin ad nauseum for 16 years. We don't know who Satoshi is. They say we don't know who Satoshi is. We've had Department of Homeland Security people go out and interview the four Satoshis. The government and the wizards of smart tell us we just don't know who this founder is, but golly, he must have been smart. And then we have Ethereum, which is the smart contract component of this digital token that is built and invested on by partners in the CCP, in Switzerland, in Canada, JP Morgan, the people behind the lawsuit of Ripple and the SEC are all the same characters involved in this, what we call ETHgate scandal. Ethereum is a smart contract. Bill Hinman, the guy at the SEC, gave the Ethereum free pass speech and said he believed it was sufficiently decentralized. Now you have this Tether stable coin that's offshore, avoiding regulation, has never been audited, refuses to be audited. And as the tethers magically get printed out of thin air, sound familiar? The Bitcoin prices go up. When Bitcoin prices drop, Tether prints more tethers, issues more tethers without audit. Boom, Bitcoin price goes up. The legacy media cheers, everybody loves it. So you have this ecosystem of Bitcoin mystery. Who founded it? What does it do? It doesn't do payments. It can't do smart contracts. It's not scalable. It's expensive as hell, and it burns a lot of energy. It's connected to an Ethereum network with a bunch of crooks. It's got tethers that magically get printed out of nowhere to make the Bitcoin price go up, and the legacy media loves it. On the other side, you've got XRP and Ripple that are part of the strategic stockpile that has usability, scalability, efficiency, safety, accountability, and transparency. It's got companies and countries and major financial institutions all over the world that are in partner with it. It's fully it's been issuing for 8+ years quarterly performance reports with all of its data there for the world to see. This is a smart contract network that the boys at Mr. Vitalik, this weird looking dude in the black t-shirt right here on the left, he slept on the couch with the early CTO named Stephen Thomas, who was the Ripple CEO. This gentleman right here, Mr. Vitalik Buterin, slept on the couch for a few months of the CTO who he was friends with while he was trying to get a work visa to come and work for Ripple. He didn't get the visa, so he ran off and created a white paper and created this thing called Ethereum. It ain't working really well. It's expensive. The code's not that great. The fees are ridiculous, and the culture over here is not good because of this guy right here. You got this gentleman right here, Michael Saylor, who promotes Bitcoin like a cult member. This gentleman right here, Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, was the number one biggest loser in the dot-com bubble back when the dot-com era came to be. He made the worst investment and lost his entire fortune investing in the dot-com bubble. But this is the Bitcoin Jesus of the day who's out promoting this on all the major legacy media stations, telling everybody how great Bitcoin is. And the founders of Ripple and the executives, the CEO and the chief legal officer are down here with President Trump. You decide which side of this graphic you're more comfortable investing in.
So on top of that, I think that was important, and why this actually had to play out the way that it did on purpose, because it is now actually defined exactly what it is under legal precedence. No other digital asset out there has met that, right?
Correct.
None.
In 2014, the CFTC fined Ripple for some kind of silly thing or whatever they fined them for. But in that ruling, they defined it as a virtual currency. And then in 2023, the judge defined XRP is not a security.
Yep.
Okay. So it is the only token that has absolute legal clarity of being a virtual currency and non security. Everything else has got a wink and a nod and a legislator's opinion or a regulator's say, but there's been no law passed that says Bitcoin is not a security. There's been no legal clarity that Ethereum is not. Ethereum held an ICO called an initial coin offering. Sounds a lot like IPO. Did that, but the wizards of smart and corruption at the SEC said, "Oh, putting aside Ethereum's initial coin offering, we now think it's morphed into a sufficiently decentralized non-security." How cute of a verbal linguistic tango dance is that, Bill Hinman?
I think that's what's important here is terminology and actually language and what is defined and what is not defined. And XRP and Ripple are the only one that is actually defined 100%.
In the United States, under the New York Department of Financial Services, stablecoin recognized as lawful and legal, and that is the RLUSD. And that means every 30 days, the Ripple organization has to prove and show an audit that there's at least a 1-to-1 collateral backing for every RLUSD minted and put into circulation. There has to be 1-to-1 collateral backing that stable coin known as the RLUSD. And the Treasury is going to take stewardship over XRP in the stockpile. And thirdly, and most importantly, there is no RLUSD that can be used or put into a transaction between two parties without an XRP token going on that transaction to record it on the blockchain. So there's a pilot and a co-pilot, if you will. Every time an RLUSD is used, and that's a digital dollar, that RLUSD is backed by T-bills, notes, or gold or treasuries issued by the United States Treasury, or Ripple cannot issue the RLUSD. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the digital dollar that Donald Trump says he's going to make the dollar remain the dominant currency in the world. That doesn't mean world reserve currency to weaponize against other people like the Fed assholes did in the Federal Reserve. It just means he wants it to stay the preeminent King Kong most valuable dollar because we are, in fact, the strongest economy in the world, right? We're about 25% of the world's GDP in one economy. So it would stand to reason he wants the dollar to stay strong. Any president would want that. But it's not going to be a weaponized tool to be used against the world. It's just going to be a strong dollar.
I want people to understand is that fractional banking is dead. And this is where we're going.
Tech stack of what's going on with Ripple, the company. Ripple, the company, works on top of the XRP ledger, which is a public, open source, free to the world blockchain. Ripple is a company that built on top of this free, decentralized blockchain, just like Red Hat was a company that was a for-profit company that learned how to work on top of Linux, which is open source free software. So what Ripple did was they decided, we love this technology. We love the XRP ledger. We're going to build on top of that infrastructure, make some additions to the code, and we're going to connect banks and financial institutions and nations all over the world. and help them with cross border payments. We're going to help take all the fat and the friction, the fees and the loss rate and the error rate and all of that and go in a way that makes this faster, easier, cheaper, and more efficient. And one of the ways they're going to do that is through a stable coin. The stable coin, if you will, is the money market account. It's the sound money market account within the crypto space. Okay, that's where there could be an RLUSD, there could be an RL yen, there can be an RL EUD, there can be an RL fill in the blank peso. If the country wants to hire Ripple to do it, they can. They want to hire somebody else, they can hire somebody else. The XRP token, third on this list, I want you to think of this as the value exchange utility token. It's agnostic to what it transports from point to point, person to person, or entity to entity. But the XRP token is like that spaceship that flies as a co pilot with something of value, atomically registers that transfer of ownership from party A to party B, monitors it on the block, writes it onto the blockchain. It's done and over. So the XRP is the utility token, the magic sauce, if you will. It's the motor oil in the engine, but it's not the engine. It works on the XRP ledger across the Ripple net. Smart contracts can be attached to the XRP so that if there's terms and conditions on buying and selling that vehicle or selling that house or whatever the contract is that says if next Tuesday at 3 o'clock the temperature is over 75 degrees, then pay Captain Kyle $10. When that happens, boom, Captain Kyle gets $10. No lawyer involved. It's a smart auto executable transaction. Value gets changed and it gets written to the ledger, and XRP is involved in that transaction as well. Interoperability is called ILP. That's an invention of Ripple. All of these things are inventions of Ripple. Okay. Interledger protocol was invented by Stephen Thomas, one of the early chief technology officers at Ripple. Interledger operability means we realize there's going to be it's going to be a world of blockchains, a blockchain of blockchains. How do we connect and have all of these different blockchains, whether it's the Ethereum virtual machine or Ripple or Ethereum or the XDC ledger, or you fill in the blank. How are these blockchains going to interoperate and speak to each other using ISO 20022 standards and still have 2 to 3 second settlement or 3 to 5 second settlement right to the ledger and keep one master record of truth that everyone can see took place? The last two are tokenization and custody. If we want to transfer our stocks into tokens, our gold into tokens, our home into a token, our medical records into a token, we want to convert, and all of the major financial institutions of the world are talking about the craze for tokenization. Tokenization adds liquidity to whatever it is that you own.